Well, hello. Once again, it's been a while since I've done a video, and I hope everyone's Christmas season is going well. And just thought I would do something maybe a little different, a little novel, maybe slightly interesting. I don't know. We will see. But so I went ahead and picked this up, the latest McCartney archive sets, Red Rose Speedway. Got number 9,498 for anyone keeping track at home of who got what number. And also, I'm not going to really talk about it this video. I might do another one on it, but I got the wildlife set and 14,753 on that particular set. So, these things are pricey, but they're chock full of goodies. I'm not going to take everything out and show it simply because I've seen a ton of videos of people who've got both of these sets that have shown the contents. So there's plenty of other places to see that, and they probably did a better job at it than I would anyway, I'm sure. So you can look those up easily enough. But I'm also not going to review it because I've already done reviews of every Paul McCartney album. If you're really bored and have nothing better to do, you can go back and look up the review on this album or any of the others. Suffice to say, I didn't give this a very good review when I reviewed it, and that was going off of the vinyl edition that I've had for years. But it's never been one of my favorite of his albums. In fact, it's if I was to rank his albums, which I actually did a video where I did that, it would rank down toward the bottom. But without rehashing the whole review, just to say that this is one of the few times, because Paul McCartney's always had this genius, this knack for writing memorable songs, this coming up with these great melodies and hooks, and he's, among the best, if not the best that's ever lived in that department. And this is one of the few albums, there's maybe one or two others, where that talent seems to temporarily uh, depart and it's just not there. And so I had this on vinyl, like I said, for years. It's never been one of my favorites. And the main thing is when I would play it, the songs weren't that good, but they also just weren't very memorable, because there's plenty of McCartney songs that, well, not plenty, but there's a few McCartney songs that I really don't like, but they're still, you don't forget them once you've heard them, because they've got the great hook, the great melody, the great whatever. Spies Like Us, Someone's Knocking at the Door, Let 'Em In. There's one on this album, and I'll get to that. Um, silly love songs like that I really don't care for, but they've still got a great hook, great melody, just memorable. And the problem with this album for me always was, with the exception of one song, and like I said, we'll get to that, I would play this album and songs weren't that good, and then they just weren't that memorable. And 5 minutes after I played it, I would think, how does that Lazy Dynamite song go? How does Little Lamb Dragonfly or whatever go? And I just honestly couldn't remember, which is very out of character for Paul, but I guess it happens to everyone from time to time, or at least everyone that writes songs. And so, yeah, I would pull this album out. I should have pulled my vinyl copy to show you, just for grins, but it's over there, and I'm too lazy to walk over and get it. So this is an album that I didn't play very often. I'd pull it out maybe once a year and listen to it and just sort of, and that'd do me for another year or so. But having got this in the mail, 2 weeks ago now, something like that, that was vinyl album. These, of course, are CDs in this set. I kind of immersed myself in it, and the car driving to work, I've got about an hour drive to and from each way, so had plenty of time to sort of soak it in. And my opinion of some of these songs has gone up a little bit, I'll admit. It's still not one of his best albums. It's far from it. It doesn't match Beatle material by any long shot. And even among his solo albums, it's still just okay. But there are a few songs that I sort of never really got into or paid much attention to that having listened to them quite a few times in the last couple of weeks, I've grown to appreciate a little more. I'll say it that way. The reason I bought this, because these things are expensive. The wildlife set, when I ordered it on Amazon, was $110 or something like that. I pre-ordered it. By the time it actually came out, the price had gone down to, I want to say, about $85, $88, $85, which is still a little dear, but not so bad. This one, the price unfortunately didn't go down, and this thing was like 180 bucks. But I got a break of, I got one of those emails from Amazon that said I saved, I think, 40 bucks on the wildlife set. Didn't save anything on this one, unfortunately. And a lot of people have complained about the price on this, and especially that super deluxe $400 set that has this and wildlife, and also has a live album from the '72 tour, I believe, which is so far the only way to get that. Would have loved to have got that, but 400 bucks, you know. And the crazy thing sold out, and I'm also surprised because I've seen a lot of people show this and the wildlife set, but I haven't seen anyone on the VC showing the super deluxe set. And I would have figured someone would have bought it, but maybe not. Maybe whoever bought it's not on the VC. Someone bought them, though, because they sold out, like I said. But that's enough on the rehashing the review. So I'm not going to review it. I'm not going to drag out all the contents. I will tell you really quick, there's, I think it's 6-disc set. There is a CD1 is the remastered album, is originally released back in 1973. CD2 is the proposed double album. CD3 is just bonus tracks. And then there is a couple of DVDs. One of them has some song videos in the James Paul McCartney show. The other one has the Bruce McMouse show, which I have not seen yet. Some kind of cartoon about mice, and I don't know if there's live action stuff in it or not. I'm anxious to see it. I just haven't had time. Also anxious to watch the other DVD because I think I saw the James Paul McCartney special at Beatlefest back in '78, or at least part of it, but that's the only time I've seen it, and I don't know that I even saw the whole thing, and that was, 40 years ago. So kind of looking forward to that. And then there's a Blu-ray, and I'm not really sure what's on that off the top of my head, but so I bought this because so far I bought every Paul McCartney archive set, with the exception of Wings Over America, because I didn't see that there would be any really extra stuff on that, so I didn't bother, but I've got all the rest. So I figured I got them all, might as well get these two as well. The other thing was the proposed double album being included in this interested me, because I've known, I don't know when I learned that, but it was years ago, that this was originally supposed to be a double album. And I had never, that might be out there, and I just never saw it. But as far as I can remember, I've never seen a list of the tracks that would have been on the double album until now, of course. So I was curious as to what that would include, and then whatever bonus material was in here, and the McCartney special and the mouse cartoon thing, kind of curious about too. So I went ahead and bought them. Well, I went through, I haven't watched, like I said, either of the DVDs or the Blu-ray yet, but I have listened to all three of the CDs quite a bit. I said, going back and forth to work, and the wildlife set too. But so what I was imagining would be fun, I don't know if it would be fun for anyone watching this, but fun for me was to make my own version of Red Rose Speedway and sort of try to transform a pretty poor album, to be honest, into a pretty good album. So I'm thinking, it's 1973. I would have been 9 or 10, depending on what time of year this came out, and I really don't remember. And Paul recorded all these songs and couldn't figure out what to put on the album, what to leave off, and what order to put them on. And so for some reason, God knows why, he picks up the phone and calls little 9-year-old me in Fort Worth, Texas, and asks me to listen to all these songs and tell him what to cut and what to keep, and what order to put the finished product in, finished album in, I should say. So that's what I did. I went through and I've been listening to these 3 CDs, and I made a list of all 3 of the CDs, just listing all the songs. So I've got the CD1 is the original album that was released back in 1973, so I've got all the songs listed. CD2 is the proposed double album, and CD3, of course, is the bonus stuff, and that's all 45s and B-sides and some songs that were recorded but never released officially round about the time of the Red Rose Speedway days, and then filled out with some live songs and some demos and rough mixes. So I got everything listed. I didn't list redundancies. So in other words, the double album, let's see, the single album is 9 tracks. The double album is 18 tracks. The double album, the proposed double album, doesn't cut anything from the album that was released. It keeps all of those songs, and then of course it adds other ones. So Big Barn Bed is the first song on the original album from '73. It's also on the double album, but I didn't list it because it's already going to be taken care of up here, if that makes sense. And I didn't list the demos and rough mixes, and I didn't list most of the live stuff, except there was 1 or 2 songs that are, there's a live version on here, but there's no studio counterpart, so I'll list them in those cases. But like, for instance, they've got the Mess live on the double album, and then on the bonus CD, they've got the studio version of the Mess, so I didn't list both of them, if all that makes sense. But, so yeah, so what I've got is the list here, and we're going to go through each song, and I'm going to decide whether they go on the album, my version of Red Rose Speedway, or whether they get thrown on the cutting room floor and swept into the garbage. So, let's start with CD1, which is the original album, and song 1, as I already said, is Big Barn Bed. Let's see what happens to that. So I've got some real technical presentation here. I have to flip the page over to see if I kept it or not. Big Barn Bed, and I wrote down that it stays. It's a pretty good song. It's bouncy. That's a song that shows up a little snippet of it on RAM. Yeah, it's a pretty good song. I don't know how good it works as an opener, but Big Barn Bed, that stays. Then we go to, and I said earlier that this is not a very memorable album, with the exception of one song which does stick in your head, unfortunately in this case. And that, of course, was the unfortunate hit My Love. I think it was the #1 song. One of my least favorite songs of his ever, and that goes. So that's just auditory excrement is what I put. It's just boring, sugary, saccharine sweet, just banal Hallmark greeting card, empty sentiment. Never liked it. I know my good friend Joe gets on me about it and says, how can I not like this, but like other McCartney ballads, which makes absolutely no sense to me, because it's not like if you like one ballad, you got to like every other ballad ever made. You know, there's rock and roll songs I like, there's some I don't, there's soul songs I like, jazz songs I like, blues songs I like, there's some I don't, and there's ballads I like, and there's ballads I don't. I like the music if it's good, and My Love certainly isn't. And don't get me started on the damn guitar solo, which, while technically proficient, is just about as dull as a Formica countertop, just encased in lucite, no soul, no blood, no sweat, no heart or anything to it. As you can tell, I'm not a fan of the song. My Love is in the trash bin where it should have stayed. So, we're 1 for 1. We go to song number 3, Get on the Right Thing. Let's see what happens to that. Stays. I said that might be the best song on the original album, but then I got a little further down and I'm not sure about that. But Get on the Right Thing, I always kind of liked that one, so that was one of the few that I did like back in the day. So now we're 2 for 1. We go to song number 4 on the original album, which is called One More Kiss, and One More Kiss stays. It's a bouncy, slightly countryish ballad, much better than My Love. Here's a good example of a ballad that works. It's really good, in my opinion. I kind of wonder whether he's singing to Linda, or whether, because his kids were little bitty kids back at that time, maybe he's singing to the kids, you know, putting them to bed after a bedtime story and One More Kiss. Or maybe it's just he's not singing to anybody. Maybe it's just a made-up thing like Eleanor Rigby or Lovely Rita, because Paul Rocky Raccoon or something, he was good at just sort of making up story songs out of thin air. But I'm kind of leaning towards he's singing towards his kids. But it's a good little bouncy ballad. I like it. So yeah, that is One More Kiss and that stays. So we're 3 for 1. We're not doing too bad. Now we get to song number 5, Little Lamb Dragonfly, which is the one that I previously really didn't like. A lot of people like that song though. Excuse me. I think I read in the book, and I will say that the books on both of these sets I've read both of them cover to cover. They're really great. I'll get into that maybe in another video, but a lot of good information and really put together well, and a joy to read. But I think Paul Weller from the Jam, of all people, told Paul that he was a fan of Little Lamb Dragonfly. But I listened to it for a few times, and I was on the fence as to whether to keep it or throw it away. And so what I decided to do was to relegate it to the B-side of a single that'll come off of the version of the album I put together. I don't know what the single will be, but it'll be a B-side to whatever it is. So we're not doing bad. We're go to number 6, which is Single Pigeon, which is just a very dull, unmemorable song. So that doesn't stay. That goes away. I do like the horns at the end of the song. The piano's okay, but the song is just sort of Dullsville and goes nowhere. So Single Pigeon is going to have to go somewhere else to look for a mate. Number 7 song is When the Night, which is another one that I always kind of liked anyway. So that stays. It's a little bit slow. It goes on maybe a little too long, but it's a good song and it stays. Hold that thought. Sorry about that. I needed to grab a prop here that I forgot to get at the beginning of the video. So where were we? We are number 8, Loop, First Indian on the Moon. Kind of a strange title. This one is another one I was on the fence. It's one that I previously thought was just a really boring song, but having listened to it several times in the past week or two, I can't make up my mind. There's something about it. It's a weird song. It starts off kind of like Native American Indian music. It has kind of a Pink Floyd sound to it, I think. It's, you know, Pink Floyd, their best album, in my opinion, is the Piper at the Gates of Dawn and the early singles with Syd Barrett. But I also love that weird period after Piper when Syd left. So between Piper and before Dark Side of the Moon, when they got famous and got really boring, in my opinion. But all those kind of weird albums when they, you know, Syd was the guy that started the band, I believe, and he was the leader, and he was the lead guitarist, and he was the singer, and he wrote all the songs and all that, and so he was the guy, and when he was gone, they kind of didn't have a clue what the hell to do, so they just sort of took this approach of, let's just do anything and everything and throw it at the wall and see what sticks, and a lot of that was goofy and weird. Some of it was wonderful, some of it was not so good, some of it was, who knows what the hell it was, but it was a lot of fun. And they got big with Dark Side of the Moon and made a bunch of boring albums. The Animals I like, but the rest of those you can have. They kind of blow, I think. But so this sounds, this Loop Indian on the Moon thing, in parts sounds like something that wouldn't be out of place on something like Obscured by Clouds or More, or Ummagumma, or one of those weird Pink Floyd albums from back in the day. So I couldn't really decide whether to put it on the album or not, because even though it's interesting, even though it's weird, it's also kind of not all that good, but it does have a little bit of merit. So I decided to do a very deep analysis and, I don't know, technical way of going about it to decide whether it stays or goes. Heads it stays, tails it goes. And, yep, that is heads, so it stays. So there we go. That's That's the way to get that done. So loop, as goofy and weird as it is, stays. So we are up to the medley, which if you've never heard this album and you're thinking, oh boy, a medley, there was a medley on the back of Abbey Road, and that was the best part of Abbey Road, and that was wonderful. This one, not so much. But what I've done is the medley is made up of 4 songs: Hold Me Tight, Lazy Dynamite, Hands of Love, and Power Cut. Some of the medley's crap, some of the medley is okay. So instead of treating it as one song in a medley, I'm going to treat it as 4 separate songs, because some are going to stay and some are going to go. Should I stay or should I go, as the class says. Number 9A is Hold Me Tight, which you might remember is also a Beatles song. The Beatles song is, Universe is better than this. The Beatles song is a 10. This one is not. Basically, it's just Paul singing Hold Me Tight over and over again. And this just sounds nothing like the Beatles song, by the way. Piano's nice, but that's about it. So Hold Me Tight, the Paul McCartney version, it's out of here, it goes. Second song is Lazy Dynamite, which is a dumb song too. It goes. I do like the last part of this song, and these medley songs are all short. I think they're like a minute or so long, or roughly. Lazy Dynamite, but in the end, it's going to go. The other song, the second to last song, the penultimate song on the medley, is Hands of Love. This one stays. It's a bouncy sort of a spring-summer song. It's slight and a little bit silly, but even at that, it's better than My Love. It's a catchy little number, and it's a fun little number. So Hands of Love stays. And the final song on the medley is called Power Cut. And nice vocals on that. Not a terribly memorable song, but it's just got nice little vocals, and it's got enough to it that it's going to stay. So that is the original album. Now we're going to move on to the proposed double album. And again, like I said, all the original album is on the double album. I didn't list those songs again because we've already gone through those. But I'll go through in the order of the extra songs as they appear on the double album. The first one is Night Out. And Night Out stays. Night Out is basically an instrumental with Paul screaming Night Out, Night Out. It's an upbeat instrumental. It's a slight song, nothing much to it, but it's kind of fun, and it stays just because it'd be a good opener. It's a good sort of bridge song. Something like Reception on Back to the Egg. It's not as good as Reception, but something like that, or something like the Station 1 and Station 2 on the latest album, which is just better than those. So anyway, Night Out, that stays. The second song up is Country Dreamer. Good little country song, good little ballad. It's actually a wonderful little song. That stays. Third song is Seaside Woman. I think Linda wrote it. Paul maybe wrote it for her. I don't know. But Linda sings. It's kind of a reggae dub type beat. Oddly enough, it sounds a little bit, not vocally, but musically, it reminds me a little bit of one of the songs on Sandinista by The Clash, which is a great album. And off the top of my head, I can't remember which song, but not that Linda sounds like Joe Strummer or anything. I was kind of back and forth on this, but in the end, I went ahead and cut it because it's just not that great of a song. So Seaside Woman is out of there. Next one up is a song called I Lie Around, which I think Paul did write this, I'm pretty sure, but Danny Lane sings it. This stays. This has been a song I've liked since I was probably 8 or 9. My first, when I got into the Beatles, I was about 8. I knew about them before that when I got into them big time, and didn't really get solo Beatles stuff heavily into solo Beatles stuff for a few years later, probably 76, 77 or so. But the first few solo Beatle things I had were my mom had bought me a copy of Wildlife on 8-track tape of all things. And then I had 45s of Live and Let Die, which I Lie Around, is the flip side, so I was familiar with that. And I had, I think I had Mind Games and Photographed by Ringo, and that was about it, solo Beatle-wise, forever. But so I had and then I think the next year I got a 45 of Band on the Run or Jet. But anyway, so Live and Let Die, I was familiar with, and of course I Lie Around because I played the flip side of the 45. So I always liked that song, and it's probably one of Danny Lane's best moments with Wings vocally. I like, is it Again and Again and Again? He sings on Back to the Egg. That might be my favorite. But anyway, I Lie Around, that's in there. The next one is The Mess, which was the B-side to the Awful My Love single. This one is a live version. On the bonus disc, there's the studio version, which I don't think has ever been released otherwise. But The Mess stays, and I'll let you take your pick whether you want the live or the studio. I think I like the studio a little more, but the live one's really good too. The Mess is the one that should have been the #1 hit instead of that Awful My Love, but what can you do? So The Mess stays. Number 6 is a thing called Best Friend, which is another live track. And went back and forth on Best Friend. It's not bad, but I'm going to, like I did with Little Lamb Dragonfly, I'm going to relegate that to a B-side of a single to be named later. Number 7 is Mama's Little Girl. That definitely stays. That's a nice bouncy ballad. Something that sounds like it'd be more at home on the Wildlife album than here. It's kind of Paul in his Mother Nature's Son mode. Just the acoustic guitar singing Blackbird or something, that sort of song. But Mama's Little Girl's a good one. That stays. I Would Only Smile is number 8. Very 70-ish sounding song, which makes sense. This being 1973. Good one, and that stays. And Tragedy, which is one that I'd never heard till now, even though I've heard of the song before. I went back and forth. I'm going to, I think I'm going to put that on a B-side. I'll see when we get to the final track listing. I don't remember what I did without flipping the page. So that's the double album, and that's what stays and goes. Now we get to the bonus track CD. First song up is Mary Had a Little, and again, I didn't list the demos and stuff that are on the bonus track because those are just demos of things that are already on the regular albums. But first track up, Mary Had a Little Lamb. Yeah, it's embarrassing. It makes you wince a little. It's also, in its own perverted way, kind of cool. It's sort of Paul giving the finger, I think, to the critics who were saying that up to this point all his solo work was lame, and sort of giving the finger to the BBC for banning Give Ireland Back to the Irish and Hi, Hi, Hi. That said, I mean, musically, embarrassed to admit, but doesn't sound bad. It's a silly song. It's not one that I would ever go out of my way to listen to just on its own. But I went ahead and kept it because I think in the context of an album, or if you're listening to a mix of McCartney songs and it pops up, you're kind of like, eh. But then once it starts playing, you're like, well, yeah, it's okay. So it's okay enough to stay. The other thing, and let me back up real quick because I know this video's already forever, but the other thing about Red Rose Speedway, the album is released in 1973, is I mean, I know a lot of people love My Love. I can't stand it, but so just putting that aside for a second, we'll put our differences aside for a second. Taking all the other songs, there's some nice songs and some even pretty good songs, but there's no hit you in the heart, got you, just grabbed you by the throat like the first time you ever heard, I don't know, Ticket to Ride or Satisfaction. No, there's no Another Day. There's no Smile Away or Backseat of My Car or Old Siams or With a Little Luck or Ballroom Dancing on this album. There's some good songs, but there's no just gotcha song. And that was another reason why I was never a huge fan of this album as it was. But I say that because the second song on bonus audio is Little Woman Love, which was the flip side of Mary Had a Little Lamb. I believe I'm correct on that. And way better than that, and also way better than anything on Red Rose Speedway, especially My Love. Little Woman Love's a 10. I mean, I love that. I just love this song. Got a Little Woman That Fits Me Like a Glove. It's Naughty Naughty Paul, but great song, so that definitely stays. The next song up is Hi Hi Hi, which was 45, that was banned by the BBC, of course. Always love that. It's a great one. It's another, also better than anything on the album is released, so of course that stays. And the next song is the flip side of Hi Hi Hi, which is Sea Moon. And I just absolutely adore that song. I always have, and it's a 10, and of course it stays. So, yeah, I mean, you can't go without Sea Moon. It's just great. Fifth song, Live and Let Die. Yeah, of course that stays on the album that I'm creating here. Then we've got 1882, which you actually have several versions here. I think you've got a live version, a home demo, and then you've got a, I guess, studio version. Nice long song. It is great, and it stays, and I'm going with the studio version over the live or the home demo thing. The Mess, I went with the studio version. The 8th song is called Thank You Darling, which I don't think's ever been released. Yeah, it's very country-ish, sort of sounds like a 50s song, 50s rock and roll song and a country song at the same time. It's a fun little song, it stays. And Jazz Street is the final song, Jazz Street. Instrumental. It's not great, but it's engaging enough that I went ahead and kept it. So, 30 minutes into this damn video, we get to my version of Red Rose Speedway, if they'd put me in charge of putting this album together. And I think I've got 21 songs. I should have counted before I did that, and I don't want to waste time doing it now. But, so side 1, and I sequenced it the way I would like the album to be sequenced, so it's not just throw these songs on here. Side 1 would be like the original album. Big Barn Bed would be the first song. Second song would be Get on the Right Thing. Third song would be One More Kiss. Fourth, Win the Night. Then Loop, which ended up being in there. I'd go ahead and put that in there. And then we'd end side 1 with Hands of Love and Power Cut, which were songs from the medley. Side 2 of the first album would be... did I do that right? I ended up with a 3-sided album. Well, son of a bitch. Well, it's too late to stop now. So side 2 would be... first song would be Night Out. And that would be followed by Country Dreamer, which would then come to I Lie Around. Then we'd have The Mess, studio version. You could go with the live if you'd rather. Then we'll have Mama's Little Girl, and I Would Smile would end that side. And then on the, oh, son of a bitch. That's why I did that wrong. Hold on. I'm not starting this video all over again. So, let's do, here's a side 4. Okay, side 1 of the double album. First song on is Night Out, which is a good little bridge song to get you into it. Second song is Hi Hi Hi. I knew that didn't sound right. I should have turned the page. Night Out, Hi Hi Hi. Then we have Country Dreamer. Then we have Win the Night. And then we end side 1 with I Lie Around. Side 2 starts with Little Woman Love. We go into One More Kiss. We go into Hands of Love, then Power Cut, then Thank You Darling, and we end side 2 with 1882. Side 3 opens with Mama's Little Girl, and then we go to Get on the Right Thing. Third song is I Would Only Smile. Fourth song is Jazz Street, little bridge piece, which ends the album with Mary Had a Little Lamb. Side 3 with Mary Had a Little Lamb. I'm not too sure about that sequencing, but I like the first 3 songs, and so there we are. Side 4 opens with Sea Moon. Then we go into Big Barn Bed and The Mess, Loop, Indian on the Moon, and we end the album with Live and Let Die. And of course we have the single B-sides, which is going to be Little Lamb Dragonfly and Best Friend. So, sorry about the mix-up there in that final sequencing part. Here's that. And that's a long-ass video. I wonder if anyone's even going to watch this thing. But have fun. Have a good Christmas season. I'll be back with some more reviews, maybe here tomorrow. See ya.